All right. Welcome to another episode of Side Note, the podcast dedicated to electronic music and all things related. I am your host, Nick. Before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe. Jumping in, great pleasure to have one of the busiest men in the LA rave scene, in the Southern California rave scene, JIA from 6 a.m. in the house. Thanks so much for being here, dude.
Yeah, hey, thank you so much for having me. And busy, I guess, is the right adjective.
Dude, yeah, I follow you on the gram. I see how many events you literally have an event going every weekend, right?
Every other weekend for the most part. And we do a lot of event promotions. You know, a lot of friends, a lot of peers, a lot of clients hit us up. Hey, we have an event, they promote. So we generally support and promote as much as we can. And that's been the root of really the company. We started off as a promotion company. So even to this day, it's just a lot of promotions. So
a lot of times I like to ask my guests, what was your last weekend like? What went down? What was the event?
Well, this past weekend we had Compound, which is a combination of a joint partnership between 6 a.m., Incognito, Synthetic Minds, and Dirty Epic.
Okay.
Some of my best friends, brothers, if you will, and we had Pampot.
Great. Yeah, the 5-hour Pampot.
Right, it was a 5-hour Pampot set.
About that.
Yeah, so it was an amazing show. Los Angeles showed up. It was a makeup show from 2020.
Oh shit! Okay.
Right. So a year and 8 months later, that was what I was tripping out about. Wow, a year and 8 months ago we were supposed to do this, and here we are again. And time, it's it always wins. Time.
Right.
Yeah.
And then do you usually play at most of the parties you throw, or how do you kind of figure
I mostly do not play the parties I throw, and it shifted somewhere in 2016, 2017, where I'm like, geez, I'm really stressed out right now doing what I love. And it just felt really wrong, because here I am trying to organize a party, trying to make sure everything is good, and I'm supposed to be delivering an opening set or a closing set, and I can't wait to check my phone and see what's going on, what's happening.
Yeah, it's hard to executive produce.
Right. And I feel like it's stealing away from the audience and from the people that are paying good money to come out. So for the most part, I have removed myself from these shows. However, I will say that there are certain shows where I'm like, all right, I have to play this one. And I really, really mentally prepare myself. I prepare my team to make sure they cover as much as they can. And I reduce as much stress as possible, so that I can deliver the performance that the audience deserves, and really for the night of the party.
Right. So I guess what determines for you, this is one that I gotta do?
Well, usually I've been a fan for a really long time. I've been studying their music, their career, and all of a sudden, wait, we're having them here. It's one of those moments where I have to sometimes go, look, this is why I started doing this. This is what drove my passion. And as much as I teach about selflessness, I also say sometimes you have to be a little selfish as well. And when these opportunities come about, it's also the reflecting on your own path and journey. Do I really deserve it? Did I put in the work to kind of be here? So, ever so often,
party, you deserve to be there, right? I mean, it's your event.
Well, I mean, that's the synopsis, right? A lot of DJ promoters per se is I'm going to throw my own party so that I can DJ. But then, once they realize that they're the promoter aspect of it, a lot of my peers this is really stressful, and I'm playing the worst set I've ever played. Where's my energy? Where's my focus?
Oh, okay.
It's you can't really focus on the craft because you're worried about your discount list, or people are going to show up, your bar. I mean, everything that happens during an event. So it's tough, those that do it. I feel like Doc Martin was kind of the last one that really did it in terms of a DJ promoter. He had a sub-level parties, and obviously he will play it, but then he was also a really, really good DJ. And this is no knock to any DJ promoters, and not to even downplay to myself as well. But, to be a really, really good DJ and a really good promoter at the same time, it takes skills, really. And it takes a great deal of time management, if you will, to be able to take care of both crafts.
Man, so there's so much I want to kind of unpack with you, but I guess, talking about you mentioned kind of if you're a fan of someone. So I guess, how did you get into rave, and like who were like kind of your musical inspirations coming up?
Yeah, so this might be a shock, but I was actually a big fan of trance. That was kind of where,
me
right.
too.
Of course. I mean, which Asian didn't come from the trance scene?
Yeah, man.
Right.
You're probably like in your 30s, right? Like probably.
Yeah. I'm in
like mid.
Guess how old
I'm gonna say like 35.
You're close. I'm 37, turning 38.
Okay.
But I'll be looking like this till I'm 65.
Yeah. Well,
right?
so we're the same age.
Right.
Yeah. The Asian don't raisin.
Right. Right, for the most part. So in 2006, so I'm originally from Guam, and I was in San Diego during the summer. My brother was living over there, and I was going to school in Virginia, and I decided to just visit my brother one summer. A lot of my friends from Guam, they all actually moved to San Diego because that's like the hub over there. I got in touch with one of my friends, and he's like, hey, I'm doing a birthday party, and we're going to have a little party tonight. I'm like, oh, what kind of party? He's like, well,
Are we gonna have pizza?
Right. Right. So he was like, yeah, no, we're actually gonna all roll and stuff. I was like, all right, cool. Like, I don't know what it is.
You're like rolling joints? Roll?
No. I mean, at that point I knew what it was. And I also had an older brother, and he was throwing raves in Guam while I was playing high school basketball. So there was like some deeper context that we can go into later on. So I was always very aware, like riding in his car to listen to Alice DJ, like just like this is like super weird, but I know he was really into it. And eventually I got exposed to it, and it was the time, it was like, hey, I've heard about it for so long. I've been kind of just hearing about it. I'm totally down. I'm in. It was during a messed up time of my life as well, just going through some losses in life, personal, deep stuff, just kind of finding my path. I was also like a really, really big basketball player.
Okay.
And realizing that I wasn't going to be in the NBA, that kind of crushed me a little bit. Yeah. So that night when the thing finally hit, right, like everybody was like, oh, enjoying it. And I kept questioning like, well, when are you going to feel it? Like, am I going to feel it? That I know you'll feel it. And the moment it finally came, I was like, holy shit, this is like the most amazing thing ever. Sure, it was the fucking serotonin being released.
Yeah.
But I had a realization like, wow, this like is really, really fucking awesome. And the music sounds amazing. It was Tiesto in Search of Sunrise. I forgot which one, but
yeah, like
the one, Adagio for strings, right? Adagio for strings, all of that classics and stuff. I was like, wow, the music's actually really, really deep and emotional. Like it's driving all these thoughts and feelings I never had in my life. Not the same way I've ever felt about basketball. I'm like, wow, this is so amazing and intriguing, and I want to, know everything about it, because I currently have zero passion for anything besides just getting drunk and I don't know, watching porn, right? Whatever during that time. So found that, and I was like, wow, this is super amazing. Graduated from university a year later, so I was doing the victory lap, found this newborn passion, and just came out, moved out to San Diego. At the time, I was dating my girlfriend, who is now my ex-wife, if you will, and went on this crazy journey of discovering the music, educating myself, educating just the whole scene, and it just opened up. And from that moment on, at 22, I realized, like, look, we're all gonna die, right? That's the reality of it. It was like New Year's Eve, 2016, I'm like, we're all gonna die. I've lost a few people. I lost my grandma, who was really close to me at the time. Lost the girl that I was dating during the time as well too. So like it happened in a matter of like 4 or 5 months. And at 22, you're like, what the fuck's going on? What's going on, right? And it's like, well, we're all gonna die. So here I am with an accounting finance degree, supposed to be the CPA. I'm like, no, like I took an internship at Ernst & Young. I'm like, you know what? I don't want to be like that. Like,
you're like, no audit for me. Thank you.
Right. So after realizing that, I'm like, you know what? I love this. I don't know what this is, but I'm just going to move forward and continue to pursue it because it makes me happy, because we're all going to die. And if we're all going to die, then why aren't we doing things that make us happy?
Yeah, man. I mean, I feel like I definitely relate to you in terms of like us sitting here right now, like making this show. except that like my realization came like during COVID. Like, it took me that long to kind of, and like you know, like finance degree, like did the whole thing. I stuck with it, still in it.
Okay.
But it's kind of like, okay, like same thing. Like, you know, we only have a limited time on this planet, especially, you know, now that I have like a work from home situation, like I have no excuse not to like be doing stuff.
Right.
So,
well, good for you. I mean, like the hardest part is sometimes is starting, and like there's actually like a couple hard parts. Number one is starting, and then number two is continuing, sustaining, right? So there's always two things, and the reason why I love Nike so much, I mean, not to get all like branded and whatnot, is they have two slogans, but we only know one. Number one is just do it. Just do it means to start. But did you know that they have another slogan called "There's no finish line"?
I did not know that.
Yeah. So in terms of choosing their slogan, they rather have someone start, but then once you realize that starting is one challenge, but the other obstacle is continuing and realizing that there's no finish line, is that, you know, you're supposed to just keep doing what you enjoy and love. And that's why you see very, very passionate people in all industries and fields that, you know, they've dedicated 30, 40 years and they're that. And it's like, well, that is kind of how you make something out of nothing.
But so you're 22, you have this realization. And so like, where does it go from there?
Where does it go from there? Well, for one, I realized very early on that because I love this so much that I didn't want to put any financial pressure on it. So what I decided to do was, after moving from Virginia to Southern California, San Diego first, and then eventually to LA, I realized that I needed to find a stable job, because having that stable job, having a stable income means that it will help support this side hobby that I have, and be able to support it in a way where I'm not cheating it. And by cheating it, meaning I have to make money from music or throwing parties. Like, because once you put that pressure in something so pure, a lot of bad intentions and bad approach happens.
100%.
And yeah, so I was very fortunate to, I don't know, have that realization. Like, I don't want to put that kind of pressure on something so delicate, something I love so much, where, you know, in sports, there's a timeline, right? You become 37, like you're old as fuck. Carmelo Anthony is the last NBA player. We're the same high school year, 2002, right? But in this journey of house and techno or business or entrepreneur, there's no timeline in it. So to be able to understand and realize that, you know, this thing can really sustain and last if your mind can actually accept the journey ahead.
Right. So, I mean, so a couple of things. You know Theo, right?
Of course. Yeah. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Theo. Jacob, shout out.
Yeah, shout out to Theo. So I had him on. He was one of my first guests, and he said the same exact thing as you, where he's like, you know, he's so glad that he has a source of income outside of DJing, because it makes being a DJ for him much more pure. It's not sort of corrupted by that need to like provide and
exactly. And you know, it's not to like to knock off on any aspiring artists who are trying to make this like their thing, and so, but understand that, you know, there's always a give and a take, right? I mean, how much work and how much effort are you putting in? How much risk are you throwing in there? I mean, you're a finance person, right? I mean, this, in the financial world, it's about money, but in this journey, it's about life. How much risk are you willing to take? Right? Sacrificing the fact of not having a family, sacrificing the fact that time and age, you know, nobody is immune to that, you know, if you know what I mean, but by time and age. So that's the risk that a lot of us have taken. And, you know, whether it's the right choice or the regrets of it, there's always two sides of the coin. And not to get dark or anything like that, but we only hear about like, the happy, jolly, like, yeah, you made the right choice. But like, you know, hey, like 90% is like really dark. Like, yeah, he made the choice.
There's a lot of struggle. There's a lot of struggle.
Fucked up, right?
But so I guess, you know, when you made the move to kind of, you know, have a side thing focused in the scene, was the decision like, oh, I want to run a promotion business, or were you thinking that you wanted to be a DJ? What was kind of the road that you wanted to take?
Well, initially was was to be a DJ. And like it happened because I discovered Beatport, and Beatport at the time was like super new. It was like maybe like a year old at the time.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was like, wow, these are all these amazing music that's just like out there, like available to be,
and only like
to be
$2,
purchased, right?
Like
$1 deal. Oh, deal was 49 cents.
Vinyl. Yeah.
At the time when they first launched.
Really? Okay.
And as I was getting deeper into it, I was also going out to a lot of clubs and going out to a lot of festivals. And what I realized that a lot of them were just playing the top 10, the top 20,
right,
the top 50. I mean, it still happens today, but it was during that realization, like, you know, I'm going out there to try to discover new music and new sound, but they're kind of just playing the top 10 of this new DJ music platform. And at the time there was also DJdownloads.com. And I've also heard a lot of music being played in that top 10, top 20. And I was feeling very uninspired. Like, wait, why are you DJing if I know exactly what music you're playing? Like, how are you, you know, further advancing my, I guess, musical needs, if you will, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just kind of the
because you want to hear interesting shit. You don't want to just hear, the charts. The
things that I've just heard, literally in my own headphones, like, okay, well, that's really good music, but I've heard it. So it was during that time, I'm like, you know what? That's BS. I feel like I could do a better job. And I feel like if I were to be in that position, I would make sure that I would never play the shit that is always on the top 20 or even the top 100. So it was really from that notion I got into DJing. And from that journey, I realized people weren't very nice during that time. And if you look at all the flyers at the moment, everybody was tied to some sort of group or organization. I don't know.
So is this like 05, 06?
This is like 2009, 2010, like 2008, 2009.
Okay.
During that time. And I was like, you know, how do you join these groups? How do you do all that? So I would hit them up on MySpace, like, hey, you know, hi, I'm this weird guy. I really love the music, man. You know, please, can I join your group? Or like, how does it end? A lot of no responses. And it was also a bad approach. I mean, I don't know. I was this awkward kid that was really, really passionate about it. I didn't know how to network or do all these things. And I wasn't meeting them in person. I mean, my only outlet was sort of the internet at the moment, especially, you know, because I had to work and I didn't really have that much money. It's expensive going out here in LA. So it was through all of the either no replies or the rejections that I realized, like, hey, you know, maybe I'm not getting booked because I'm not part of any group or I'm not part of anything of value.
Like a crew,
Right, like a crew. And it's like, since no one is giving me a shot, I think I'm just going to start my own so that I can put it next to my DJ name and be like, hey, here you go. I'm part of this group and stuff. I mean, it's kind of sad kind of talking about it right now in terms of how, I guess, hungry or desperate I was to try to get a gig. And, you know, to anybody watching this or listening right now, I mean, you all know what it feels like to try to get that first gig, or like what that approach is even like. There's no rule book or like an instruction manual on how to like do this thing properly. So it was all very awkward and very unintentful and very like, you know, yes, I'm reaching out because I'm trying to get a gig per se. So
yeah, I mean, I think for the time that makes perfect sense, right? I mean, this was before Instagram and everything was just about kind of social media and
but there was MySpace.
Yeah.
So I was like, thanks for the ad.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But yeah, I remember like everyone used to have like, oh, well, like I'm associated with this label or I'm associated with this promoter.
Right.
And so yeah, I mean, I think that's like the logical conclusion. Like, oh, I need to have like a
right. So then when we finally just started, how did 6 a.m. come about? So I mean, I was working at a financial company, and it was LPL Financial, one of the largest private financial companies at the time. But I was working at the La Jolla branch, and being there at 6 a.m. means that you're already an hour late in New York.
Oh.
So, I mean, I would have to be at work. I would have to be in at 6 a.m. in the morning, like my head still like, duh. And then I would find myself Saturday morning fucking in front of the liquor store at 6 a.m. waiting for the bar to open, waiting for the liquor store to open because we're still after partying.
Right.
And like at the moment, I'm like, life is about balance. Like I'm living this crazy life right now of like, here I am Saturday morning, but like Monday morning, like it is a whole different fucking story. And how many of us have lived that fucking life? You know what I mean? And, you know, the yin and the yang not to get all Asian on people, right? I mean, it's you know, it's the balance, right? House and techno, black and white. I mean, like everything in life is about balance. So for me, if you look at a traditional clock, even though a lot of us haven't seen one, 6 a.m. Sits right there in the middle, and I think it's such a good message to let people know that everything is about balance, because you can't just be partying your entire fucking life, but at the same time, you can't be slaving all your entire time away.
Yeah.
Everything about life is balance, and where contentment and inner joy, happiness, whatever, it really comes from having this really nicely balanced life of health, mental wealth, financial gains.
That is such a good story. I had no idea that's what kind of, that's.
Yeah, no, because I don't really talk about it.
I mean, the symbolism of it is perfect. Yeah, like the kind of midpoint of the clock, and then kind of with your work. Wow. Well,
yeah.
There it is, folks. There it is, folks.
There it is. Yeah.
Where 6 a.m. came from. That's pretty nuts.
Yeah. So, you know, even in a lot of our, you know, the promotions, like the work and play, like work to play, like you got to work to play. Like partying is a privilege, not a right. Sorry, Beastie Boys, you know, they're like partying is a right. It's not really. It's a privilege. Okay. You earn that shit.
Yeah.
You earn it. Yeah.
It is not a right.
Yeah. It depends on how you see it, but I think, you know, for me, it's earned. It has to be earned, because once it's not earned, it gets really dark. It gets really fucking dark real quick.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I tend to think that it's right, but you are correct in that if that right is abused, it takes.
Yeah, I mean, it's like driving, right? They always say your license is a privilege, not a right. And it's like, yeah, I mean, we all have the right to drive, but like once you start fucking running the red lights and T-boning people and right. And like, we've all seen sloppy ass people, right?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, going over the edge, and it's like, that's just not the vibe.
Yeah. You got to fight for your privilege.
You got to work for your privilege, man. You got to earn that shit. And how much, look, to everybody listening, we've all been there, right? When you know that you've earned that fucking right, that moment to party, it is pure euphoria. But when you know that you're there because you're being dragged there, or you're just there because you have FOMO and the moment's not right, ooh, bad trip, right? That's where bad trip comes. No, it's not bad trip. It's your reality is all fucked up.
Yeah, well, it's sort of like partying with intention versus just like out of compulsion.
Exactly.
And yeah, like when people are, when they have compulsion to party, it's not a good look versus I'm here because I want to be.
Exactly.
But so before we kind of, because I want to hear like the whole story of how we got from, you know, 09 to here, but real quick, also wanted to follow up on the thread of kind of like, so what music were you into at the time, you know, at 09? Like what was sort of informing?
Yeah. So, at the time I was already moving away from trance because I got into that in 06, 07. So like really deep into it. And then during that time, 08, that was when Deadmau5 first came in, Deadmau5 at the time. So that was when he first emerged and introduced electro house, that real, you know, I guess fidget house, if anyone's that old school, that electro house era, that zipper sound, Miles Dyson, Wolfgang Gartner, early days, in terms of that, even Calvin Harris, early days, a lot of that really big riff sound. Got into that, and then from there it was tech house, you know, one trip to Miami, 15 hours of space.
Oh shit.
With Luciano, all of a sudden, like you can't get the hi-hat out of your head, right? Everything becomes very sensitive.
Right, it was then tech house, not like today's tech house.
Right, exactly.
Like completely different.
Exactly. Like. Back then, tech house was, man, I know it's. Yeah, like the evolution of music.
Yeah, the labels, like, they changed labels.
The labels, I mean, even at one point, the progressive house like got dominated by Hardwell and Martin Garrix. Like, no, that's like actually Sasha and Digweed and, you know, Nick Warren and
totally
all of that. But that's what Beatport does, man.
Yeah. I hate them for that.
No, but also you have to give them respect in terms of giving access to it, as well as our friends that work at Beatport. They do amazing work over there as well. I don't want to, you know, be too...
I mean, shout out to Beatport. We all buy our shit from Beatport.
Exactly. Yo, if anyone has any promo codes, drop it on the link below here. You got to drop it on the comment sections. Keep it rolling, man.
We're always looking for promo codes. I feel like that's done. Like,
yeah, I know.
Now they do their like flash sale where it's like, oh, you can get 20% off for just today only. Yeah, but anyway, digress. But yeah, so you were into kind of the tech house sound of then, so like Luciano.
Yeah, the Luciano. I would say even Oxia, even the old school Technasia, old school Technasia.
Yeah, so this was kind of like when tech house and minimal house were sort of kind of like
right. And I was getting introduced to like the Richard Houghton Dubfire at the time, so it was all interweaving. And then, you know, I have to give a shout out to Los Angeles Techno because there was a collective. They used to be known as Joy Behavior. They're now known as Observe. It was founded by, you know, Drum Cell, and today it's with Trunket. And they have, I would say, at least for me personally, because I went to one of their parties and it was their 10-year anniversary. Granted, this is the 10-year anniversary. It's my first time stepping in. They had Marcel Dettmann. It was a warehouse in Simi Valley.
Oh shit!
As a matter of fact, this is like
in the valley. Wow,
this is some full circle shit. So the venue that we used for Pampot this past weekend, they actually their original venue was that one in Simi Valley, but they opened up a second location in downtown. So I first went to that location in Simi Valley. First walked in, and there was like a checkpoint in terms of where to get to the party. So they sent us to Glendale. Then we got the address. It was a rainy night in LA. Got the address. I was like, wait, this is not the party. This is like the map point. They're like, yeah, the actual party is up in Simi Valley. At that point, I'm like, fuck. Kind of hungover. It's raining, but my friend's like, no, you have to go. You have to go. You have to go. We show up. It's the most amazing thing ever. At the moment, during that time, I remember I was kind of trying to go further outside of tech house. Like tech house is cool. Like I like the sound, but I was trying to search for something more deeper, raw, if you will. And the moment I stepped in, I was like, all right, this is it. And I've said it many times in other podcasts as well. And like even in person, that moment was kind of like the first epiphany. Like, all right, everything that I've ever known as myself as a DJ, like, from this moment on, it's kind of like a revamp of everything. I'm going to dive really deep into the sound, find out who they are, what they did in the city. If this is their 10-year anniversary and I'm the noob in this party, like my goodness, how ignorant was I up until this moment.
Wow, so it was like a revelation.
It was a revelation. And, I don't ever really party too much in LA now. By party, I mean like really party. And at that moment when I walked in, like, I'm ready to party. Let's go. So it was I would say a very spiritual night. And, it was one of those moments that, yes, the very first time in 06, that unlocked like, wow, this is a newfound passion. But that Joy Behavior party, the interface party, during that time with Marcel Dettmann, that unlocked what everyone now knows as 6 a.m. So from that moment, I'm like, we're all the EDM stuff, the tech house stuff and stuff that we're doing, or the more mainstream stuff, it's going to be a little bit more dialed down. We'll still support it, but in terms of our direction, in terms of how we want to do our music and how we want to do our events, it's going to start transitioning, gearing towards that way. So that's been the journey, and that's been the kind of tail end of it that kind of leads into where we are today.
That's crazy, man. It's like a very identifiable inflection point, which is like so awesome to hear about. And then to hear about kind of someone else having a spiritual experience. I mean, I think that's what drives everyone to rave, right? Because it's not just partying and music. Like, for me, and I think for most people who are in the scene, there's something about the combination of the two that kind of elevates to a spiritual level. And, I'm sure for a lot of people, I know for me personally, it's like the closest thing that I had ever experienced to like a true like spiritual experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think for me now, whenever I throw these events, if we can impact just one person to have that moment that we've all had, that moment that you talked about, then we have done our job as an event thrower. And ever since 2017, when I interviewed John Digweed, he brought this really, really interesting perspective, is that stop worrying so much about your passion. Like, it's good to have passion, but it's really, really important that you ask why you have that passion, why you're doing the things that you're doing. And through that exercise, I feel like that's when, whenever you have that spiritual moment, you have to ask yourself, why is this so special for you as an event attendee, right? And not just be like, oh man, I'm really fucked up right now. This pill is really hitting me hard. Like, no, like there's a special connection and you have to ask why. Yeah. So, you know, maybe for an attendee, they're just there to have fun. But that interview with John Digby, he's like, look, for those that are in it for the long run, obviously he's in it for life. You know, having your why and understanding your why is going to help you sustain this journey. And so it's been a narrative that I've been pushing the last couple of years to be able to find your why, you know, in this journey. And John Digby, he said it best. He's like, there's a reason why most party goers that just get fucked up, like they don't last long, because there is no why. Like there's no justification of why you're doing drugs so much every other weekend, because at some point that thing becomes purposeless, or because of the drugs, they realize that, all right, something has to change, and something does change beyond that. So yeah, it's important.
All hail to John Digweed, by the way. Shout out. Definitely one of my, you know, as a bedroom DJ, probably the singular most kind of biggest influence on me.
Absolutely. And to be able to share the stage with them at Cross just a couple months ago, it's been like, that was like a real moment. And I was able to get a photo with him and just like quickly brief, like, hey, you changed my life. I know you hear this a lot. He's like, yeah, great.
Yeah. He's like, yeah. But so, yeah, I mean, I guess that's a good segue into, you know, the 6 a.m. kind of empire is sort of very multimedia, right? Because you're not only doing events, but you've got, I guess at the time it was a blog.
Yeah. So what everyone is seeing right now is a person that has ADD. That's how everything kind of came about. It's like, I can't sit still. I can't just do one thing. Yeah, I mean, yes, I'm doing one thing. You know, my argument is I'm doing one thing 6 a.m., but it's like, no, within 6 a.m., currently today, we do have the events, which has always been the bread and butter. We started from a promotion company to now we're still a promotion company, but we also do our own events. We have a blog and a media site, which pumps out a lot of content. It's our way to connect with the world and for us to give value and use ourselves as a platform to give artists, labels, and really anyone in the electronic music community a voice. And then the third, which is a shop, which we pivoted during the pandemic because that was the only thing that we had. And through that, you know, I jokingly call that's like our little triangle offense that we created. But like in a way, it's to kind of help and connect with the community, because with the shop, we're able to connect with you, you know, on a Monday morning, if you're just wearing our stuff or drinking our coffee. Right. On the weekends, you're able to come to our events. And look, if you're ever wanting to educate yourself on the industry, on the music, we have a website that, you know, constantly pumps out content and new music. And it's just my way of luck. When I first started 6 a.m., someone was like, what's your end goal? I was like, I don't know. I just want to make an impact. And at the point, or at the moment, I didn't know what that meant. Nobody knew what that meant. Like, what the fuck does that mean? I was like, I don't know. But like, I just want to make an impact. And I think today it has become evident through just kind of doing that. This is kind of the impact that, you know, we have created.
That's great. And that's some of your merch, right?
Yes, it's one of our merch. And I love basketball, man. So like, it's only natural that we give the home team a little representation with the culture. It's kind of like our way of cross combining the cultures and streetwear, if you will. On.
And yeah, and you'll be seeing games at crypto.com.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Shout out to the crypto.
Yeah, crazy, dude. That is absolutely crazy. Like,
yeah, like this isn't a crypto pod, but like I could definitely have a whole other pod just about crypto. Yeah. So we won't go there. But
hey, for those that are listening, we do have the Ravecoin on the Rally network. Yeah. How crazy is that?
You did an ICO, like you have a Ravecoin. So like, is it being traded or like?
Yeah. So the thing is, it's under the Rally network. So Rally is an actual crypto that's currently traded on Coinbase and other platforms, and within that platform, they have all these creator coins.
Okay.
And
so it's just like a social token.
Yeah. And one of the person that was working there, he's an attendee of ours. He's like, hey, we have this whole thing. You should totally launch it. You know, it's totally new. And at the time, we're like, hey, look, I don't really understand how this works, but I know that this is the future of it. Let's totally give it a shot. And today, you know, we sell tickets, merch, even services. Like, look, if you want to get your Instagram post reposted or like your SoundCloud link reposted, you can do it all through the Ravecoin, and it's our way.
Oh, really? Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So it's, I mean, granted that it's good music and it has to go through approval. We don't just repost anything as well. We still have to keep the integrity of it, but it's kind of our way of educating our community of like, hey, this is really the future of things, right? And whether or not you buy into it, like it doesn't matter. We're kind of this platform that's letting you know that it's here, and we'll see where this goes, because it's absolutely crazy. And we're currently also working on our NFTs, which, you know, that's a whole different thing.
Holy shit, man. So, I mean, you've got like a social token, you've got a merch store, you've got events, you've got like a blog, like it's insane how much you can keep going.
Yeah. And like just sometimes in the morning, like I wake up and I ask myself, how come I'm still not happy? And it's crazy because and like I'm not to segue into this, but this is like a very, very real thing. Now, if the today me were to go to who I am at 22 and be like, look, everything you're going to be working towards, like it's actually going to happen. Like the festival in Guam you're thinking of, all this shit that you wanted to do in LA, like it's here. But what you have to be careful of is like, you cannot tie your happiness to something tangible. You really cannot.
Well, the journey is the happiness.
The journey, I mean,
it should be.
I mean, dude, the journey can be really fucked up too, right? With tons of obstacles and people leaving and believing you and all these things. So like, you know, I think it's more so inner joy for the most part, and really understanding that like early on, like to realize that if you tie your happiness, like, oh, by the time I get this gig, by the time I throw this party, by the time I book this artist, by the time I have all of this, I'm going to be happy. That is where you're going to freak out in the end. And I think a lot of the mental health, at least I would say for those that's been in it for a really long time, I think that comes with it. It's like, well, all these things did happen, but it's like, still like, you know, I'm not like, whoa. Yeah, there's joyous moments for sure. Right. But you also have to realize that within it, you really got to find that happiness and that balance within it, because of everything that you just mentioned. Yeah, we did all of this. We worked really, really hard. You know, I worked really, really hard for it. And, you know, just sometimes I did question it, like, especially 2020 when everything just stopped. You're like, well, shit. Here we are. It's been 12 years, been 13 years.
Right.
And you don't ever really realize that when you're going actually through the journey. So yeah, it's just one thing I wanted to kind of just quickly talk about, that, you know, as you're chasing and you're going through your goals in life, to make sure that you really understand your why. And then more importantly, like, you know, who, like, don't just go through it so blindly and be like, well, you know, I could lose a couple best friends. Not a big deal. Like, as long as I'm staying sharp and focused through it. Right. And, you know, this is real. Just like any business or like any endeavor, these things happen, and we just have to be very, very careful and to realize that, to not tie your happiness to it, and to understand that there's something so much deeper into it, which is why, you know, the last couple of years, Artist Map, a lot of the things that we post on our 6 a.m. I mean, even someone says like, why does it feel like your platform is like a live, love, laugh kind of ordeal? It's like, you know what? Because
wait, somebody said that about, meaning like in terms of the stuff that you're posting.
Yeah. Okay. So if you go on the 6 a.m. page, like it's like a combination of like memes, event promotion, and then like once a day, it's like this really motivational, like fucking heartwarming thing that just comes out of nowhere, right? I mean, I tell my team we should do that like first thing in the morning, so that's like that motivational juice, and the rest of the day you can pump out like memes and whatever. And yeah, someone tweeted this, and we actually bumped this up on the top of our tweet. Right. And the reason is because it makes me feel good. like after building this entire thing, all I want to do now is just use this platform to like just re-educate people. Like, hey, I'm in it. I've been through it. Like, you know, yes, it's fun. It's great. We have a hell of a good time, but check this out. These are the things that you have to be careful of, you know, to make sure you really understand why you're doing it. You know, if you have people that are really close and believe in you, you got to be really transparent with your goals, especially if you have, you know, deeper commitments, right? Because a lot of the times people think it's just a hobby that's going to go away after 5 years.
Right.
Right. And it's not until you realize, like, well, we're like 9 years in or like 14 years in, like, wait, that person's a lifer. And right now I'm starting to realize who are those that have chosen that path. And it's not one of those things that you shout at an after party, like, yeah, I chose this for life. Like, nobody ever just like shouts it out. Right. But then it's like, you realize, like, well, it's been so long. You're still in it. You're still doing it. Connect with people and connect with them, you know, as soon as you find out who they are, because things will get lonely and you just have to realize that.
So are you full-time running 6 a.m. or do you still have
Yeah, I'm full-time as of December 2017.
Okay. Wow. Okay,
yeah.
So it's been a while.
Yeah. Well, it's been 4 years and I held a day job for 9 years straight. One job, one position, one company for 9 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you were able to leave it.
And then I was able to take that leap.
That's the dream, man. Like, I mean, I get what you're saying in terms of.
Here's the thing. When I was with that job, I couldn't wait to leave. But I mean, I stuck with it for 9 years. And like, I'll have to say, like, a year and a half after I left, I was like, I miss it.
Really?
The grass is always greener on the other side.
Just in terms of, like, talk about that. Is it just in terms of the stability of the paycheck?
The stability, I think, just even having the structure, right? So because of 2020, everyone was forced to work from home. But in 2017, like, I didn't know how to work from home. Are you kidding me? Right. Like, Mondays, I'm still a little hungover. You know what? Let's just continue the party, right? It's hard, like time management. I mean, that's a real thing. Being disciplined, self-discipline. It's a boring word. I mean, but it's so important. Like, you got to have that, or else there's no structure in your life. Right. And like, it just goes wild. Having that 9 to 5, I mean, you had to be somewhere at a certain point. And, you know, for me, I feel like that kind of helped me out a little bit, because I feel like growing up, I was just kind of all over the place, a little ADD, can't really focus, can't really, you know, sit down and just do the fucking work. So for me, it was a struggle. It took me a whole year to finally like realize, like, okay, this is how you work from home. So it was a struggle, man. And, you know, and then a lot of the hindsight catch 2020, like, man, while I was at the job, I should have paid more attention to this. I should have, you know, there were a lot of things that you could have learned on the job, you know, through your managers and CEOs in terms of how you can then reflect onto yourself and actually applying it. So yeah, it's been, you know, it's been fun. It's been great. The best part about it is waking up and being able to choose what you want to do. Right. That part aspect, I don't think you can get rid of. And I think that's the best part of it.
Yeah, like the freedom and the agency, right? And I guess as an entrepreneur, you know, if you go back to your earlier self, you know, what are some lessons that you would have given yourself? And are those lessons kind of more business in general, or is there anything specific to Rave that you would kind of tell yourself to watch out for? Or, I mean, I know you've kind of already alluded to, you know, earning your party and not kind of.
Yeah. You know, I think being authentic, and I think that's so, I mean, it's so easy to just say it, right? Like, yeah, be yourself, be authentic. And it's really hard. It's really hard when you're in your 20s. I mean, it was incredibly hard in high school. In your 20s, it's extremely hard, but I think the generation's changing. I think the mindset is changing.
Yeah,
for sure. And, you know, it's something that I learned a little bit too late, or not too late, but I felt like I learned it, you know, a little bit later in my journey of how important it is to be authentic. And what it means is, look, we all act a certain way around a certain group. And I think the quickest way to figure out your circle is to just always be yourself. Even if you're that weird person, even if what you're into and what you say, just like, it's just out of this world, at least what you do is that you save time.
Yeah.
Time, you know, to waste it on people that just don't belong in your circle. And, you know, we've all felt it, but I think in our 20s it's hard to act on it. And I think, you know, if you're listening to this or watching this right now, act on it sooner than later. Because for me, it was a little late. And it took some crazy shit that happened for all of it to, you know, eventually expose itself. And the way that life works is this: time will always reveal everything. Time will always win. That's why being patient is like such a key in life, but also to realize that it, like, the more you sweep shit under the rug, it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter what the fuck it is. Time will win.
Right.
So
yeah, I mean, I think a lot of what you're saying too has to deal with like self-acceptance, right? Like a lot of people aren't cool with who they are, like fundamentally, so they don't feel like it's okay for them to be authentic. I mean, I certainly feel like throughout my 20s and most of my 30s, I would even say, like, it took a while before I got to a point where I'm like, oh, I'm cool with the person I am, and now I feel like empowered to be authentic. But yeah, I mean, I think that's great advice in terms of like,
for sure. And I think, you know, those who really live it up to be real, you'll start to realize that the circle you have, it just gets smaller, right? And it's not to say that you're closing people off per se, but it's just, that's just how it works. I mean, like, you're never going to be your authentic true self and expose everyone to hundreds of people, right? So being able to find that core group, could be, you know, 5, it could be 2, it could be 10. I think anything more than that just starts to, you know, be whatever, but you can still have good friends. But I think having that core group of people that really know who you are on your good days and bad days and your terrible days, and still be there for you or still understand you, I think that's really, really important. And that comes from being authentic.
Right.
You're only going to attract those kind of people when you're actually being real to yourself.
Right. Yeah, it's true. Like if you're not real with yourself, you're not going to attract real people.
Exactly.
It's gonna be fake. Oh, actually, do you want to pull that down? It might be covering your face.
Oh, okay. Here. There you go.
But yeah, one of the other things I wanted to ask you was like, so you've been doing this for a while. You've seen changes in the rave scene. I mean, we even talked about like genre changes and stuff. What other stuff have you seen change that, you know, me as primarily a consumer of rave that I might see? Because, you know, you're getting a more like in-depth look kind of throwing the events.
Yeah. It depends on what change you're asking, like the good change or the bad change.
I guess both. Yeah. I mean, like we want to hear it all, right?
I guess I'll start with the bad, right? I think the bad of it is, you know, if you're a purist, this thing has gone fucking ape shit. This is like the most commercial thing ever. It is not even underground. Like underground is even no longer underground. I mean, I kind of want to, we don't even really say our events are underground. It's just, we do a warehouse party.
Right. There's so many tiers now. Like,
so in terms of, you know, how crazy it's gone, right? I mean, it's bad in a sense where it becomes too commercialized, it becomes too monetized. And back to what I was just saying earlier, that when you put so much profits or capitalism towards something so pure, it's going to lose something. That's the bad part of it. Now, the good part of it is the scene and the music has never been exposed at this scale like ever before. People can hate on Adam Bader drum code, but are you kidding me? I mean, that is, if you want to look at a sales funnel of techno, they're the top funnel of it. Factor 93, what they do, I mean, they even know it too.
Yeah.
They probably say, hey, we're the one that brings the funnel to you. Right? So everything kind of works in that way.
Yeah, from all of these fans. Like you
exactly.
Now,
so like down. We're able to kind of, you know, enjoy what we're kind of going through right now because we're catching the right wave.
Right.
Now, back to the people that, you know, really did Los Angeles techno, that started it. They did it when nobody gave a shit about it. And I still remember, and I still do remember this because I was promoting back then, seeing some parties with, now that I think about it, like really big artists, like really big techno artists that flopped back then, that like just did not do well. That if we booked them today, they would absolutely sell out. So like, you know, I'm grateful for the era that I'm in right now. You know, I think we all, those that are in my era, we have to recognize or realize that yes, we are working really hard towards it, but also understand that we're catching the right wave, and it's our outlier, right? I mean, it's because techno's getting bigger than ever, and we've been doing this thing in electronic music for, you know, 12, 13 years in LA, and we're finally catching on into that. There were other groups that worked really hard. They really loved techno, but they were not in the right era. So, you know, is just a different playing field into it. So we have to just be aware of that as well.
So you kind of touch on it in terms of the fragmentation, right? Like there's so many levels of production value now, where it's like you can go to the $10 party or the $20 party, and then the $30, the $40 party. And then there's like up at the Factory 93, like the $100 party.
Right, and it just seems like when it comes to that bigger party scale, there's only just one or two promoters that's kind of doing it. It's become more of a I hate to say this, but like a monopolized aspect of it. And like, even those that are trying to cut their teeth as a promoter or an artist feel like they have to now play into this new game of, new era of things that, that comes with it. So it's tough, but there's also a way, right? I mean, instead of making excuses and, kind of pointing the finger at the situation, there's always a way to kind of go through this, even today.
Right. Do you know Ray Cash, right?
Of course. that was my old neighbor.
Oh, really?
Hollywood. Yeah.
You guys were like DJ neighbors?
We were, we were just living neighbors, but then we found out because we were DJing at the same club, and he dropped, or the resident DJ dropped him home. He's like, wait, you live here? He's like, yeah. He's like, JIA lives here. He's like, wait, what? And that's when he texted me. He's like, hey, we're neighbors. Like, dude.
Oh, that's crazy.
And he's been a homie of mine. I mean, we're not super close today, but it's one of those that he'll always be a lifetime friend of mine.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, Ray is like such a solid dude. So I had him on, and he said a lot of the same thing of what you just said, in terms of like, we've never been at a point where there's been so many parties to choose from, in this scene.
Yeah.
And I feel like now, like, I remember like basically there used to be like Avalon, where else? There was like Sound, and like a couple of
Avalon, Vanguard,
yeah. Sound, like just a couple of handfuls.
Circus Disco. I mean, if you want to go there, right. Sunday, right.
Like there were like 3 places that you could go,
right,
and that was it. And there wasn't always like a good DJ that you wanted to see, like on any given weekend. And now it's like I'll open up Resident Advisor or Dice or whatever, and it's like any given weekend, there's probably like 2 or 3 or even 4 DJs that I would want to see, and I got to decide like which one I want to go to. So I mean, yeah, I definitely agree. Like LA scene has never been more robust, which is amazing. I think on the flip side, in terms of what I've seen as a consumer, though, is sort of like everything is its own musical lane now, right?
Yeah.
You used to be able to go to a party and there would be like the drum and bass room and the house room and the techno room. And now, like, and I've talked about it on this show, like everyone is like forming around their own cliques. So even like, in techno, it's like everyone shows up in black and they only want to listen to techno. And then you go to like the burner party and it's
everyone's
all like deep house.
Into that.
Yeah, it's all like deep house, like bohemians. And then you go to like the bass party and it's like a different vibe. And I was talking with just my random friend, my friend Simon, who was on as a guest last week, and we were kind of theorizing why that is. And like the only thing we could come up with is maybe it's because of the internet. Because now with the internet, you know what you like, because you can kind of, okay, I like techno. This is my jam.
Yeah.
I like deep house. This is my shit. Whereas I think earlier on, like in mid 2000s, you were still kind of relying more on the parties to like expose you to the sounds. But I don't know, like what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, actually, I think that you're right. Before the internet times, you would go to these parties and there would be like a multi-genre. And like, I used to remember I went to parties where it wasn't even multi-rooms. It was just one room, but with multi-genres. And the DJs would then just intersect out. And I definitely think the internet has a lot to do with it, because you're able to kind of narrow down. And I think even to some aspect of it, we all understand that you will actually drive out your true audience if you start to kind of niche down in a way, because it's like like you can have a wide musical range, but at the core of things, I mean, there's really just 1 or 2 things that you like about this music. You either like the harder, the ravier stuff, or you like the deep, the melodic stuff. Now, there's also people like myself who depends on the mood. If I'm in a Sunday day party, please bring more of the melodic progressive house.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it just depends. And I think having these promoters that are more specific to the sounds, I think it gives consumers less guessing per se. It's like, well, I don't know what I'm going to get. It's like, no, know what you're going to get. And I think the internet does have to play a lot with that. I mean, there's really no other explanation besides people really knowing what they want. And perhaps it's also the evolution of the scene, right? It's been another 10 years. It's going on another 15 years of this scene kind of maturing. And instead of people just saying, oh, I like anything and everything, I'm just here to party and get fucked up. It's like, no, like, I'm not even here to get fucked up anymore. I'm just here purely for the music. And this is the only thing that I want. And I feel like the change in the shift of the era is that back then people were only going to get fucked up. And if anything, alcohol wasn't even really being sold that much because people were just so fucked up.
Yeah. I think, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I fully agree. Cause I remember like, you know, when Sasha or Digweed would come back in the day, like the crowd that would show up for them would be like, oh, we're here for
yes.
Right. And then recently I went to go see Sasha at Sound like a few weeks ago, and I could tell it was very much like just the bottle service. Like, so I feel like at your events though, like people are showing up for the music.
But here's the thing, on, like, right? And I feel like maybe clubs are losing that appeal in that regards. And, you know, I mean, it's just because it's a club and like, it's so predictable of like what it's going to be in that night. It doesn't matter who's playing in terms of the vibe and just the atmosphere. It's a very predictable setting.
Yeah. It's like the bottle service vibe until 2 a.m. when it's last call, and then the real music people stay until like 4 or 6.
Right. And I think we're starting to see that more evidently in clubs, like who's really into it and who's not. And that's always going to be a struggle, especially with alcohol ending at 2 a.m. in LA. It really kills the vibe.
Yeah. And then so as you've gotten older with the scene, you've been doing it for 12 years. Like, have you noticed a change in your crowd at all, or does it feel mostly the same?
In terms of the vibe, I feel like they are more energetic these days. I mean, also because we're more than ever, we're doing a lot of techno shows into it. You know, I would have to say for the most part, like besides my close friends and acquaintances, there's a lot of people that I don't even recognize anymore, right? Because the whole generation has changed.
Right, it shifts.
What I have to notice is this: they know what they want. They are there for the music, and they are there till the end. And I think the passion, if anything, has remained the same. The passion from that era and the passion from this era, it's still evident. And I think, you know, as long as we continue to deliver on the quality of music and the quality of our productions, we're hoping that they continue to pass the baton, right? Hey, that was a really cool show. It changed my life, etc. Or if you're ever in LA, you should definitely go check them out. And that's what we're trying to aim for. And hopefully that, you know, that our consistency translates into the consistency of the crowd that we attract.
Right. I mean, and I think your crowd is definitely like an up for it crowd. And, you know, I've been to a few of your events, and, you know, it makes me feel like heartened that like the kids are actually like into the good shit, you know, because for a while it just seemed like, oh, all of the underground shit is going to get displaced by, you know, Afrojack and you know, hey, I really appreciate you mentioning our crowd, and, you know, I just want to give a shout out to our whole community as well. Honestly, that's like the really, really cool. And what happened at Compound this past weekend, what was really cool was this attendee on a wheelchair to trying to get out, and it was crowded going through in and out, and we were pushing the wheelchair person through, and just naturally everybody just cleared out. Like, in a way, not to get all biblical, like Moses, but Moses, like kind of like, wow, this is really cool. I mean, and as I was pushing through, I was like, this is what makes this whole thing so special. You know, that people actually cared, even though they were fucked up. They wanted to get in and see Pampod. They did for that split second to be selfless. You know, not to knock on what happened in Houston with, you know, I mean, just. But it's true, like real talk. I couldn't imagine anything like that ever happening at like an electronic, like at a rave.
Yeah. And, you know, I also want to give a shout out to our event staff as well. From the security to our door staff. You know, it's been, before doors open, we always have a chat. Like, we bring the energy of the party. Now, if we're all fucking coked out and all tweaking and shit, like, that fucking energy would just be translated into it. I always, you know, look, it's okay to have a shot or two, that we're having fun. Yes, it's a party, but we're here to work. Our event name is called Work. just to remind everyone, not just our attendees, but to remind our guests that you worked for this shit, that you worked and you earned this, and now it's our turn to put in the work for you.
Right.
So it's like a two-way street,
right? You gotta work for the privilege of
right, exactly. So, you know, to anybody out there, you know, who are thinking about throwing their own parties or who are throwing their own parties, just watch how the vibe translates with just you being less stressed and you coming in with just a happier vibe and just really loving the party and loving the crowd and loving everything you do. The crowd's gonna be like, wow, the vibe's really good. And they're not going to really know why, right? Like, wow, the vibe's really good. The energy's really good. And it's like, you know, I credit the community 100%. But then at the end of the night, I always tell my staff, it's because you guys came and like you guys smiled at people, you know, even though there's assholes or whatever, we still handled it however we want. And it's just so important to realize that it's always, you know, it always comes from the organizers, then it translates to the energy of the party. It's never the crowd that brings the vibe. It's never that. If anything, it's a two-way street that starts from the organizer, from the promoter to the community.
Yeah, you know, interesting. Like, because I never really think about that as like a consumer, right, of Rave, how much of an impact the staff have on it. But, you know, when I sit back and kind of think about it, yeah, of course.
Right, you know, when you attend our parties, I mean, our bartenders are...
Yeah.
Our door staff, I mean, even our security. I mean, I make sure, like, look, you're the first people they see, and you guys look like ex-NFL players, right? I mean, huge bit, you know, very intimidating. And so you better be the nicest person that they meet first, and they are, and they're very, very nice.
Right. Well, man, like I could keep asking you questions all night. So, I mean, I think I'll just cap it, you know, because we're sort of both finance guys. You know, we're hearing a lot. We're going to tie in. We're going to take in the broader economic issues, social issues. Like we're hearing a lot about inflation and stuff. You know, things getting more expensive. I'm certainly seeing it. You know, like an Uber somewhere costs like $200. Man. How is that impacting you as like a promoter of Rave? Like, are you seeing your costs increase?
Absolutely. So everything after the pandemic, everything went up by like 40, 50%.
Fuck.
I'm just going to say that from our vendors to our porta potties to everything. Even artists that are coming from overseas. I mean, everything is just going up. It's crazy. It is, you know, I don't know what other input to say besides the fact that we're going to do our best to remain fair across the board. I mean, I know it's, you know, it's sometimes a catch-22 because it's like we're trying to bring some of the best artists. I mean, like artists that play Awakenings all the time, right? Artists that play Time Warp, artists that play all these festivals around the world, but they're also not cheap, and their agents don't care about our cute little story of how we're trying to champion the new era. That's cute, but here's the invoice, or here's the budget, right? So we're gonna have to just be strategic about it and continue to kind of stick to our formula of discovering new talent, right? Discovering them before they become that big, that big ticket item and stuff. And I feel like our talent buyer, Marco, who's my business partner, has done an absolute great job in terms of being able to discover that. And I know that as the world continues to open up, both in Europe and Asia, that we're going to continue to move towards that path. And by us discovering the next wave, it would at least allow us to keep things as fair as possible, but just understand that for the bigger shows, I mean, it's a bigger show.
Yeah,
for
it's hard to control. Yeah, I mean, like I've been to parties like when there's good production, like it's costing now.
We don't own the venues. We don't own anything. We don't own the sound system. Everything is all rented. Everything is all coordinated, communicated. So a lot of times it's not even in our controls in terms of how these budgets are swayed in turn.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I went to that burner party, Mayan Warrior, a few weeks ago, and it was like
they kill it all the time.
Yeah, they killed it, but it was like $100, and then I think that night door tickets were $200.
Well, you know, but I'm sure the production was absolutely out of this world, right? And I think, you know, I do not know any of them personally, but I do know that they do things very, very proper, and I know that if they could do it for less, they would.
I agree.
I think for any event organizers and promoters who are really doing it from their heart, if they could, I know for a fact that they would, and they should. You should if you're watching this. Yeah.
Well, with that, man, it was such a pleasure meeting you and kind of getting a peek behind the curtain of the 6 a.m. empire. I am sure we will see bigger, better things, with each passing year. So again,
thank you so much for having me.
Plug before we end here?
No, I mean, you just check us out on our website, 6amgroup.com. And then if you're on social media, just everything at 6am group. That's the number 6am group. Yeah, very easy. And we're going to be doing this forever.
Awesome.
That's the goal.
Before we sign, one last thing.
Sure.
I mentioned this about Reform. If we can get some more colorful lasers at your events, that would be awesome.
Yeah, you like lasers? That's actually one of our things that we don't do. It's crazy. You like lasers.
Yeah.
Lasers could work, but it just really depends. And the thing is, it's so hard to coordinate lasers. That's the thing.
Got it.
And there's only like a handful of people in LA that really do it really proper. And even if we do bring out the lasers, it's not going to be for the whole night, right? So
got it. So I'm just like,
not trying to get economic on it. Yeah,
I'm a real psychedelic guy, so I'm just like, hey, if I could just get like some
hey, but I'll take this as a community feedback, all right? And I'll bring this up in our next production meeting for Reform that we'll consider it. All
awesome.
right.
Well, again, pleasure, man. Thank you. And then, folks, we'll see you next week. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.